Thank you, Mayor. Harjo, the $100,000 is going to the community development for the housing element. Can you explain like why they need more money? Was that because it's been extended? They found that they have to do more work than normal? Like, what's the reason behind that?
As I understand, it's primarily professional services. It's a multi-year approach, so we have some dollars budgeted in the current fiscal year, but we anticipate that we're going to need additional dollars for professional services to support this effort.
Because it's moving into the next fiscal year and not finishing right now?
That's correct. We didn't budget for those dollars in fiscal year 23, but it's now crossing over fiscal years.
Okay. And the other question I had is on the position control. So I brought this up previously. I talked to Jimmy about it this morning.
Sure.
So we had a dispatcher's needs assessment back in 2016 that stated the minimum staffing should be 3 per shift, our public safety dispatchers. And then the fire department standards of coverage study showed that there's a need for a dedicated fire dispatcher, whether it's training our own or to have dual role or contract out with county. I asked this back in March and previously. Does staff still feel that we have an adequate public safety dispatchers to cover the increased calls of service and the needs for both police and fire? And we heard from the city administrator's report that on one evening on Saturday night, there was like 200 plus calls of service. You know, and I can only imagine that when you stress the system just with basic calls of service, even if you end up having something more than that, let's just say a structure fire, a firefighter down, officer down. I'm just wondering if staff is still comfortable with just 2 dispatchers.
I defer to Mr. Forbes on additional information on that, but I think this exercise again was a mid-cycle adjustments at this time. I'm sure the fire chief and police chief have had discussions around it. If anything, that recommendation would have came before you if that was the recommendation.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Hilton, I think it would be helpful to have Chief Espinoza talk a little bit about the dispatch center, how they handle those nights of excessive calls. I will tell you that every department would like to have more employees, every department, so I'll have Pedro explain to you how they handle the workload with the current workforce.
Mayor, Council, certainly it's a challenge when we get inundated with calls for service. However, we can't adequately perform a staffing study until we're fully staffed to try to determine whether or not we need to deploy a different model of scheduling. We're currently down 3 positions in the communications center. We just had our supervisor take a job up in the North Bay, and so we had to backfill her position by taking a dispatcher from there. So until we're fully staffed, we can really make a determination whether or not we need to redeploy or come up with an updated staffing study.
Thank you, Chief.